This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Hello and welcome to the very first maiden episode of the Dreamcast Junkyard podcast, also known as the DreamPod.
10 years later. This is the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod, the premier podcast about Sega's final console. I am Lewis, and today I have one Mr. Tom Charnock with me. Hello, Tom. How are you doing?
Hello, Lewis. I am doing very well. Thank you for the invite onto the pod once again.
Well, it is your podcast, so...
Well, it's our podcast, and it's a joint effort.
I invited you onto your own podcast. But yeah, Tom, the Dreamcast Junkyard, the website that you started all the way back in 2005, it turns 20 in December. How does that make you feel?
What, other than old?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day. It's almost half of my life dedicated or spent doing this. It's a bit weird, just because I can remember certain times in my life, certain milestones, and also remember what I was writing about on the Dreamcast Junkyard during that period. So it's strange having like most of my life documented in some way.
Yeah.
I know when I first started, the blogs were more. They had more detail in them about what I was doing in my daily life, because nobody was reading it, so it was more of a blog. Oh, and here's a bit of Dreamcast stuff as well peppered in. Obviously that's changed to be more of a traditional sort of news site these days, but yeah, it's odd knowing that it's been almost 20 years at the time of this recording. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I think I asked you about something the other day. It was I think I was looking at an old article, and I think it was like Simon or maybe Aaron who'd written up like I think the Junkyard had turned like 1 or 2 years old, but it was like, Tom's not available to write this. And I was like, oh, what happened? And I think you were saying you were in the Navy at the time.
Yeah.
So you weren't exactly, there to write a post, I guess. So, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole period when I was in the Navy where I just wasn't, obviously, as you can probably imagine, my mind wasn't on Dreamcast stuff. So, but I did pop on every now and then. And I remember there was a particular period where I was in a position where I was spending a lot of time sat behind a desk and nobody could see my screen. So when I should have been doing like MOD stuff, I was just like going online and looking at the Dreamcast Junkyard and thinking, oh, I didn't realise I could get on this on the MOD network. I thought it'd be blocked, but it's not. So I can start rewriting like little blogs, and I started back up again when I probably shouldn't have been doing that. So, yeah, there's a little glimpse behind the curtain.
Were you on a seafaring vessel while you were doing that?
No, I was on an air station or a shore base.
I see.
So, yeah.
That would have been interesting on like the Google Analytics. Like, where would that come from? Yeah. But the reason why we've got together today is there's another important milestone, other than the fact that the Dreamcast Junkyard turns 20, and that's that this very podcast turned 10 this month of April, and we forgot all about it.
We did.
Thank you to a fan called Alternative Sega on Twitter who reminded us of this. Yeah. And I saw this tweet, I was like, what? The DreamPod's 10, and I suppose that makes sense. I mean, it's kind of weird that it doesn't feel like it's been 5 years since we did the 5th year anniversary. No, it doesn't. Where you reunited with Aaron and Rob, the original guys who were on episode 0. So, which came out on April the 11th. So on April the 11th, that was when this very podcast turned 10 years old. So that's a decade of audio ramblings all about the Dreamcast. And I wanted to ask you, Tom, what is the Junkyard's collective official excuse as to why we forgot about this?
The official line is, we forgot.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it never even registered to me until you told me that. What was the person's handle?
Alternative Sega.
Alternative Sega, thank you for reminding us that it turned 10, because it completely slipped my mind. It obviously slipped your mind as well, Lewis, and nobody else mentioned it, so he's like, okay.
Yeah, that was, I was like, because I've been so thinking about like things we could do for the, the website's 20th anniversary, and it was like, how did we even forget about this? And obviously there's a lot of people who love the DreamPod, myself included. I'm a fan as well as someone who is part of it. And so I was like, how the hell did I forget this? I guess you could say I'm actually kind of a junkyard noob, because the first episode of the DreamPod I was on was in 2018.
Oh, really? Was it? It seems like you've been here forever.
I know, yeah. But yeah, it was...
Like the furniture.
But, that I suppose that still makes me qualified to be a raging fanboy of the junkyard still. It's not worn me down just yet.
We'll break you down eventually.
Yeah. For the fellow fans out there... I have tasked myself today with lifting as much lore out of you, Tom, as possible. Lore, yeah, junkyard lore. And it's all preparation for the inevitable Tom Charnock biography that will come out one day, maybe in like 2035 or something. But
you're too kind. Nobody would read that. I wouldn't read that myself, to be honest.
So what I wanted to ask first then is, where were you in 2015?
I don't know. I mean, obviously I was still running the junkyard sort of full time then, not as a full time job, but just as a sort of a hobby. But I was way more invested in it then than I am now. Obviously in 2015, it was the 10th anniversary of the actual blog as well. And I remember that distinctly because I got in touch somehow with the head of marketing at Sega Europe, and he basically very kindly gave us a load of prizes to give away as part of a celebratory competition. And I don't know if you remember it, but I took a load of photographs of VMU icons and things from different games, and you had to guess like which game the actual icon was related to. And we got these Dreamcast collection special vinyl LPs that he found in a desk drawer at Sega HQ, sent them to me, and then we gave those out. We gave those away over the course of the length of the competition, which was pretty cool. Trying to think if there's anything else that happened that year. Was that the year of the ill-fated Dreamcast Junkyard Collector's Guide?
I imagine, because I believe that because you were friendly with those guys at Sega, I think you sent them a copy.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. Yeah.
And then unfortunately, despite them being fans, their legal department weren't quite as happy with that, which is such a shame. And it's kind of almost like a seal of approval that Sega went for the junkyard in that way. It's kind of like, well, you must be relevant enough for them to take notice. But at the same time, I remember the post going up because I think I bought one of the guides. I was at university, and I bought one, and such a shame because that was a great guide as well. I actually lost my copy. I don't know where that went. So yeah,
for those people who maybe don't know what we're talking about, basically the gist of it is that Mike Phelan, long-running collaborator on the Dreamcast Junkyard, he basically compiled a collector's guide list of every single Dreamcast game, every variant. It was just basically a PDF of like a list of games of checkboxes. We turned it into a book through a local printer, and we were basically selling it on the Dreamcast Junkyard blog, and people loved it. Collectors were buying it because it was only something nominal, like £7 or something, but it was just to cover the costs of the actual printing. And I sent one to the guys at Sega Europe just as a thank you to say, thanks for sponsoring our 10th anniversary celebration of the blog. And they responded like really positively. Oh, they loved it. They said, it was great. But then, a few weeks later, we got this sort of cease and desist email from Sega Legal, because I think they must have seen it or got wind of it somehow, obviously with one being in the building. And and another interesting side note about that whole saga, I suppose, is that we sent them to people who we knew were, Dreamcast fans and people who relate to the Dreamcast. So I sent one to Peter Moore when he was at EA, and he responded, saying thank you for that. That was mind blowing that he did that. We sent one to Jonathan Ross, the TV presenter, because he's a big collector of Dreamcast stuff. He's got divers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I remember him tweeting because he needed someone to help repair them because I think they're quite, they break down quite easily. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So that's the whole story. Anyway, we stopped selling it. We tried to redesign the cover. They still weren't happy with it, but it came out later that the reason for the whole thing was that they were working with, I think it was Pix and Love, to create their own Dreamcast guidebook, which looked very similar. The covers were very, very similar. The cover was designed by Phil Hockaday, who's another podcasting sort of co-host that I worked with on a thing called Maximum Power Up for a number of years. But yeah, it looks identical basically, and I think that's why they didn't want to have any confusion between the two books. But it's all water under the bridge now. It's ancient history. It's just interesting to think back about that was 10 years ago. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Lewis.
Yeah, no, yeah. Touch wood that Sega I think they've chilled out a bit now. I think there's plenty of Sega books that have come out. You had like Chris Scullion's Dreamcast guide and Andrew's books as well. So hopefully they've taken a chill pill about stuff like that. And
yeah, this was very much in the era before like Kickstarter, and obviously fan books have existed for many years prior and post that whole incident, but I just think because it was kind of new, and I don't think even in 2015 the Dreamcast didn't have the reverence and the uptick in interest that it has had like recently. So it was probably quite new for like Sega's legal team, like, oh, what's this kind of thing. So yeah. But it's all ended well, I suppose.
So, like, I think the blog at the 10-year mark had a good readership at that point, and you had lots of contributors as well, and because all them guides sold out when you decided to sell them as just pay for postage, and I think we like I say, I remember getting one, but so the podcast then in 2015. Do you remember like any initial conversations? Like, did fans say, "Why don't you start a podcast?" Did you have people you worked with on the blog who were like, "How about we start a podcast?" It's
interesting. I'm really trying to rack my brains as to how the podcast came about, because I'll be honest with you, I don't really remember, and I'll talk a little bit about what I was doing regarding podcasts before the DreamPod was born. Essentially, I only became like aware of podcasts in about 2012-ish, and prior to me discovering this thing called the Giant Bombcast, which is an American gaming podcast, I didn't know that podcasts existed. It was just something that existed out in the world that I had no like concept of, and it's probably because I didn't own an iPod, because I think back then you can only put podcasts on iPods. Maybe I'm talking rubbish, but that's how I sort of remember it.
It was a very accessible way, at least, to get podcasts for sure. Yeah.
So I discovered this thing called the Giant Bombcast, and I just thought, this is amazing. There's guys talking for like an hour and a half, 2 hours about games, and it comes out every week. Oh, I'm hooked. So I started listening to that, and then through that I found another podcast which was more UK based called Retro Collect FM, which was attached to the now defunct collecting website retrocollect.com, and I listened to all the episodes, and then I got to like episode like 15 or something, and it just ended, and I was just like, why are there no more episodes? So I remember reaching out to the sort of the editorial team at the website and asking, are there going to be any more podcasts? And if not, why not? And I think it was Adam, the guy who owned the site, responded saying, we're not doing any more podcasts because we can't find anybody to edit it. So I said, I'll do it. If you're going to make more podcasts, I'll do it, because I really wanted to listen to more episodes. I was that kind of enamored with it. And so they agreed to like let me sort of edit the podcast, and I did a couple of episodes, and then eventually they asked me if I wanted to be on one, and I'd never done any podcasting, anything like that before in my life, and I was a little bit nervous. And I remember the very first episode I was on was about Bomberman. It was about the Bomberman series, and I had no interest in Bomberman, but I forced myself to play through things like Bomberman 64 and a couple of the older Bomberman games on the Mega Drive and on the Super Nintendo, just to get my knowledge up. And
there's the one on the Dreamcast as well, isn't there?
Yeah, of course, yeah. And so, that was my first sort of foray into podcasting, and that would have been again in about 2012, 2013. And so that's where my podcast journey, if you will, started with Retro Collect. And when we're talking specifically about the DreamPod, I got to be honest, I think the very first person who mentioned to me about setting up a Dreamcast Junkyard podcast was a guy called Martin Hinson, who isn't involved. He's done a couple of guest articles on the blog. He did one about Tokyo Highway Challenge a few years ago, and he also co-wrote the one about the Wii U and the Dreamcast, about which one was the biggest failure. He was the one who said to me, well, why don't you start a Dreamcast podcast? And I was like, why? No one's going to listen to that. And it was that initial seed that was planted. And then it may be about 6 months later, I decided, well, why don't we just give this a go?
Yeah.
And so that's when I got, I asked Rob and Aaron, who were the main contributors to the blog at the time, if they wanted to sort of convene, just to give it a go, not to have it as a weekly or a regular thing or a monthly thing, just to like have a go and see what it sounded like. And if it was crap, just like not even bother putting it out. But that's when we did episode 0, which I actually went back and listened to the other day just to remind myself. And it's so cringe and so badly made, and it's just really awfully edited, and like everyone's voice is so quiet, and I say about 5 million times, probably the same as I do in this episode.
I'm very conscious about the amount of times I say and like. No one else will notice it, but it's always like that kind of personal frustration at that podcast voice, I suppose. But yeah, it's so interesting, like you say, you weren't even sure why would you do a podcast, because like podcasts are one of those weird things where I thought that they would completely die with YouTube becoming so popular. Like, why would you listen to just some audio? But they've seemed to have taken on a whole new life, and they're even more popular now than ever. So I think our stats show that it just keeps going up, and that's brilliant. So yeah, so you're kind of iffy about that episode 0 now, but you obviously liked it enough to put it out.
Yeah, it was just that, it was my own. This is going to sound really sort of big-headed and wanky, but it was like my own thing as opposed to being on somebody else's podcast. So we could basically do what we wanted. And, initially I think the first few episodes were originally hosted on Retro Collect's Buzzsprout account, because I didn't have my own, because I was still trying to work out where to sort of host it and what we should do to actually have it online and accessible. So yeah, again, we couldn't have done this without Retro Collect, being there to sort of help prop it up originally. The first sort of maybe 3 or 4 episodes were hosted by their Buzzsprout account.
Like I said before, you, Rob, and Aaron, the Gagga Man, as he went by, you reunited for episode 75, so people can have a listen to that. Again, I feel like we forgot that there was a 5th anniversary. I think it was Andrew Dickinson who reminded us. He's like, guys, it's the 5th anniversary, and then I think you put that together.
Thing is, life gets in the way, doesn't it? I think the one thing that's worth mentioning is that behind all of this, behind all of the Discords and the Facebook groups and the blogs and the podcasts and everything else that we do, all of us, we've got day jobs. We do all this in our spare time. It's all been done as a labour of love. None of us are full time. Well, apart from like Rob now, who's the editor of PC Gamer. None of us are professional like games writers or content creators. We just do this as a hobby. So, I mean, that's testament to how much passion we've got for it, I suppose. But that's probably why we forgot, because we're too busy doing stuff at work.
Yeah. It should be a collector's item, but I do own a copy of PC Gamer with Rob's face in the front in the editor's introduction. Yeah. And then there's an article from you in that very issue. So that's pretty cool. From episode 0 to PC Gamer, how far things have come. But I thought it'd be quite interesting to talk about, after 140 episodes of the DreamPod, which is like our technical numbering. I think if you actually count the episodes we've put out, including like bonus stuff and episode 0 itself, I think we've got about 146, I think. But I thought it'd be cool to talk about some of our favourite episodes, favourite guests we've had on, favourite moments. So I'll pass it over to you first to go through that then, Tom.
Yeah, before I do that, I think it's probably right that we just give a shout out to the vast number of people who have been in the numerous revolving presenters chairs over the years, because people have come and gone. If you are somebody who wants to go back and listen, because I know that some people do start at the beginning and just listen to all the episodes in order. Yeah. And so some voices kind of come in and then they fade out again, and then new people come in and then go away. I think possibly myself and, well, probably just me really is the only one that's been here through the whole lot. But there's been different sort of eras, shall we say, with different co-hosts. So just want to give a shout out to some of those people. And the list is quite long, but I'll try and make it as brief as possible. So in no particular order, they are Rob, Aaron, Caleb, Gaz, Xander, I think was only on maybe 1 or 2 episodes, Ross, Martin, Scott, our Down Under correspondent, Mike Phelan, obviously, and then we've got some, current hosts as well. So there's obviously yourself, Lewis. There's Jazz, Andrew, Loz, Harvey, who goes more by Pizza Hotline, Kev, Brian Vines, Derek Pasquarella occasionally pops in with some new work. There's Mark Williams, Mike Rogers, and of course Rich was on a few of our episodes as well. So yeah, there's quite a few people there, but there's a core. The core group kind of is usually down to about 4 or 5 people, and then other people kind of come in and go, which is fine. Which is it's great. It keeps it fresh, and like I said, there's always a revolving chair of new people, new
different
angles,
perspectives.
Yeah, totally. Which is cool. I know there was a period where I kind of just sort of went away there's been several periods where I just kind of went away because I had other stuff going on in my life, but you guys carried it on without me, and I'm, very thankful for that, because as well as being on the pods, I do listen to them as well. So I would also consider myself a fan of the DreamPod on those ones where I'm not there. It's great to just listen to it and like not be involved on an episode.
I remember you saying, I think there was an episode where Loz jokingly went closer to the mic and he's like, if you're listening, Tom, probably on like a run or something, you were like, yes. Whoa, like you were a bit kind of taken aback by it. It was a bit strange.
It was so weird. I'm there like running through the countryside, listening to a podcast that I used to be on where someone's calling me out by name into my ear holes. I'm like, this is the most surreal thing I've ever heard. Yeah. But it was good.
Excellent. Yeah. So those are like the, presenters. And then, is there any particular episodes that you remember fondly?
God, there's been so many. Obviously, there's been like 146 episodes, so it's hard to kind of pick any out specifically. But a couple that kind of stick in my mind. We did a Christmas one a few years ago, which was like a Christmas themed one. And Caleb was pretending to be Father Christmas. That sticks in the memory. I've got my notes here. Rob, your microphone is sounding fine.
Good. I'm good.
Aaron, yours is okay as well. Excellent. Cool. Just waiting for Caleb to appear.
I think he'll be here sooner or later.
It's getting a bit late. I think he's a bit late.
Oh! Merry Christmas, everyone!
Merry Christmas, who are you?
Wow!
Oh, isn't it obvious? It's me, Santa!
Santa?
Why, yes!
What can we do for you?
I heard there was going to be a gathering here today, so I stopped by to say hello to all the good lads from the DreamPod podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let's just see who's here today.
This is amazing.
Oh, there's Rob. Oh, Rob, you've been such a good boy this year.
Yay!
Oh, and look, it's Gargaman. Oh, what a good artist you are, bringing joy to everybody on the internet.
Bless you, Santa.
Oh, and Tom. Yeah. I've been looking over my list. I'm afraid you've been very bad.
What?
Typical.
I'm afraid that you've been ignoring Sega corporate copyrights.
I can only apologize.
When you understand that respecting intellectual properties is a fundamental of capitalism. Oh, I'm afraid there's going to be nothing under the tree this year, Tom.
Same as every year.
Except maybe a letter.
Oh. Well, for the rest of you, though, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year! Goodbye!
We did do a few kind of like themed ones back in like the sort of the earlier days, which were like themed around a specific genre of games. So we had a one that was called Race Pod with Lewis from Sega Driven. We had one called Fight Pod, which was all about fighting games, as you can imagine. We had Shmup Pod, which is all about the shmups on the Dreamcast. So they were quite good. Just a quite nice diversion from the usual, what have you bought, what have you played type chats that we're having.
I feel like you talked about the shmup pod because there were so many people on the episodes that it was just like overload.
Some of the episodes have been just like absolute, just free for alls because there've been so many people. It's been hard to keep track of who's saying what, when. But I think we've got a good sort of mix now with, maybe 3 or 4 hosts at the same time. Because it's all a learning experience in it. None of us are professionals. So what about you, Lewis? Is there any that stick to your mind?
Yeah, I think there's 2 that kind of stuck out to me as ones that I've, since I've been involved. One of them was quite a clever idea that someone came up with where episode 101 was themed like the game show Room 101.
Oh, yes.
And that was just like just a hilarious episode. We just kind of didn't give a shit on that one. I think the favourite bit about that was we just slagged off the hardware, and I think at the end we just like joked like no one should have a Dreamcast, and then the other one I really enjoyed was a more recent one in December. Was we did a Blue Stinger special at Christmas, and Harvey, Brian, and Dominic, who goes by Dreamcast Enjoyer on YouTube, they absolutely love Blue Stinger like so much, and I kind of just got involved to help, organize it, but their love of that game is so intoxicating, and I remember being like, guys, I've been playing the game, can I join in? And it just felt like such a genuine chat from some real like super fans of that game, and also really cool was that Harvey managed to get a cameo from Ryan Drummond, who voices Elliot Ballard and of course Sonic. So that was really cool. So yeah, that was one of my faves.
That was really cool. I remember when you sent me the audio file, I was just like, oh my god, this is unbelievable that somebody who's actually in a Dreamcast game and voiced Sonic is just like talking to us.
Yeah, and we got him to say like, this is the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod in that voice, and that's really cool.
Yeah, breaking the fourth wall, like smashing the fourth wall down.
Indeed, yeah. So I suppose that kind of leads us really nicely onto some guests. Like, what kind of guests stand out to you that we've had on? We've had a lot, and we've had some pretty spectacular names. Some really important people have been on.
Yes, obviously doing this podcast has allowed us the honour really to speak to some kind of really important is one word, but just like really well known and influential people in the gaming world, specifically related to the Dreamcast and also in the wider context really. But some of the guests that really kind of I feel honoured to have been offered the opportunity to speak to are people like Peter Moore. That was just mind blowing when Jazz did all the hard work to get Peter to come on the show. Because we joked about it in the past, like, he'd never come on he's never going to come on our little podcast. Why would he? Be like, what? No. But he did, and he was great. He was really, really nice.
He wasn't on a podcast, but he also interviewed Bernie Stolar. So it was like 2 of the guys in charge of Sega when the Dreamcast was around.
Yeah, I mean, the Bernie Stolar one was purely via email. But again, he was super nice and super accommodating, and obviously answered all the questions that we had and gave us some really good answers. Yeah. And but to be able to actually converse with Peter was just brilliant.
That was episode 100 as well, so it was a big episode as well for that reason.
Yeah, we wanted to do something a little bit special just because, I mean, I think he's been on several podcasts since then, and talked about the Dreamcast and all the rest of his career.
We opened the floodgates for Peter Moore interviews.
Well, I'm not gonna be that, I'm not gonna show that much hubris or overconfidence, but it was great to get him on the pod. A couple of other guests that we've had on that were really insightful people and just really nice to speak to. Giles Thomas, who was the head of the European marketing campaign at Sega Europe. He was the one who did all the adverts, and basically, it was all about the image of the Dreamcast in the European market. He was responsible for that, and we asked him some really good questions and got some really insightful answers about the whole launch sort of situation, mainly in the UK from his side, but it was just fascinating hearing his memories.
It was really good, that episode. I actually listened to that one, when we did the anniversary of the European launch. I actually listened to that one again. You asked some really good questions on that episode.
Thank you. Some more other notable guests. We had Casper Field, who was the editor of DC UK magazine, thanks to Andrew. And we asked him a lot of questions about his time at Argonaut, as a sort of a games developer, We had John Linneman, who obviously everybody knows from Digital Foundry now. Back then, I think it would have been about 2016 or 17 when we had him on the show. But Digital Foundry certainly wasn't as big and as influential then as it is now. But again, he was really cool, and somebody who I've kept up a sort of, what would you call it, a parasocial relationship with. I mean, we do occasionally message each other and have a little bit of a chat behind the scenes. So he was great to have on the pod. Just a really nice, cool, down to earth guy. We've had Darren Jones and Nick Thorpe, both from Retro Gamer magazine, on the podcast, and had sort of quite wide-ranging chats, not just about the Dreamcast, but retro gaming in general. And also on the magazine front, we had Dean Mortlock, the editor of Sega Power, on in the recent past. Chris Scullion, who, as you mentioned earlier, has released a book all about the Dreamcast, and it's the Dreamcast library, but obviously he's also a very accomplished games journalist in his own right. And I think one of the more interesting for me guests on an episode that I wasn't on was Stefan Holmquist, who was the guy who was behind Headhunter.
Yeah, the producer, game. I think. Yeah,
and it was that was a really, really fascinating interview from somebody who is a fan of Headhunter, but who was just in that context was just a listener. And just listening to his story about how Headhunters came about, the whole launch, why it was cancelled in other territories, and I think Andrew did a great job of interviewing him. To be
absolutely. Honest, we had a video game esoterica. I love that YouTube channel, so it was great to have Anthony on. That was a great chat as well. Derek Pascarella. I mean, he's almost like unofficial Dreamcast Junkyard now.
Salute to Derek, saluting him as I speak.
Yeah, we had Carlos
Laveros, from Retro Summers, who have been supporting the Dreamcast now for many years with some great games like Xenocider, and obviously they're coming up to releasing Soviet Borgs. He was a great guest. He's been on a couple of times, I think.
And then Luke Benstead, I think he's been on multiple times as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Obviously, he developed the simulant engine. He worked on DreamPie.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that's so important to the Dreamcast scene.
He only pops up when he's created some amazing new thing, and he's just like, oh, by the way, I made this, and everyone's just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, yeah, all right, cheers, see you later, and then he'll just disappear again for another 6 months and come out with something else that's amazing.
Yeah. And then we had Adam Korolick and Corey Marshall on an episode together. That's so cool. I mean, Corey Marshall on an episode is, the voice of Ryo Hazuki is so cool. And Adam Korolick, I remember watching all his videos, every single video put out about the Dreamcast, and watching him, and then I was reading the Dreamcast Junkyard. So he's very pivotal in a lot of people's journeys as Dreamcast fans.
Adam, obviously, I've met him in person, and I've done a number of podcasts with him. But I remember the very first time I met him. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before, but it was at Play Expo Blackpool a few years ago. He was a guest, and he was doing a talk, and I think we did do a talk together, which was recorded and hosted by DJ Slopes.
Yeah,
Slopes Games Room.
Shout out to DJ Slopes. Yeah,
indeed. Yeah, massive respect. But I was texting Adam because he was waiting for us on a corner somewhere in Blackpool, because we were going to meet up before we went to the actual expo, just to sort of set things up. And me and Mike were walking down this side street, and we saw him on the corner, just stood there looking at his phone. I was like, Mike, just stay here a minute. I'll just wait here. So I ran up, ducked behind some cars, and then just jumped out and grabbed hold of him. I was like, give me your bag! And he went, oh! I was like, it's me, it's Tom. So that was my first. That was my first meeting with Adam in face to face. But I found it funny. Maybe he didn't. But it was It was great. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
That's a great story. Who else have we had on? So we've had the Sega guys. That was a great episode. Yeah. We've had Sega Nerds. Who are they? I believe they're called Megavisions now.
Back then it was Chris Powell, who is the editor-in-chief of the Sega Nerds. And we got him on, and he was a great guest,
Yeah, we've had Dan from Wave, and I believe it was Dean Mortlock as well.
Yeah, Dean came on as well with the guys from Wave, yeah.
Sort of like a double bill podcast, because I think you were talking about the Sega powered magazine, and then the demo disc that was on that, and then obviously you've mentioned Lewis from Sega Driven. We've had the guys from Sega Saturn Shiro on. That was a great episode.
It was.
Dreamcast Hub has been on quite a few episodes.
Yeah.
Dreamcast Enjoyer has been on a few now. As I've said before, great YouTube channel. Go check him out. Ross Kilgariff, he's been on he's been on at least 2 episodes, I believe. But yeah, always a great chat with Ross, developer of the upcoming HarleQuest. Yeah. And then also, not too long ago, we had Derek from Stop Skeletons from Fighting. I mean, we're all big fans of his channel, so it was really cool to actually have him on. And it was a bit surreal, like being on the recording with him. It was like, that's the guy off YouTube. It's funny because like he's just like a mate of Brian and his fiance, and they hang out with him. But to me, it's like, this is the guy off YouTube. He's a celebrity.
Yeah, he seems to know a lot of people who are in that sort of internet famous kind of realm.
Yeah.
But, like, they're just people that he knows from growing up. So.
Yeah, Brian's from Seattle, so there's a lot of people like Metal Jesus and Kelsey Lewin who are like from that area. Mm-hmm. I think Kelsey just like runs a shop that he goes to.
From his house, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool.
Well, there's one more that I forgot to put on here because I just completely forgot. But Dreamcast guy, who is now like really popular on YouTube. But back when he was on the DreamPod as a guest, it was just because his name was Dreamcast guy, and we chatted about Dreamcast stuff, and so we invited him on the podcast, and he's since gone on to become like really, really big on YouTube. But he was on he was on an episode with Adam Koralik as well. And he was on a couple of others. We did a podcast about platformers, I think he was on, where we chatted about like Rayman and stuff. So he was on that then with us as well. So, he was another interesting guest that we've had on. So, yeah.
He could be kind of like one of those, band snobs. He's like, I knew him before he got famous, bro. Yeah, and I suppose kind of leading on from that then, we're trying to think about some favourite moments on the pod, and I think you've got a few here that you'd like to share.
Yeah, they're not really moments, they're just things that stick in my mind because of how ridiculous they were, or that I had an absolute nightmare trying to edit them out, for example. But there's so many episodes here that I can't really remember any particular standout moments that, were just in a particular podcast. But some things that do stick in the mind are, there was a period where Caleb was on the pod as one of our hosts, and he would do this incredible impression of Jesse Ventura, Governor Ventura. He would just pop up every now and then as a sort of a running joke, which was always interesting when I was editing the podcast.
Is there anything else anyone else wants to like touch on, or?
No, I think that pretty much does it all. It's like, oh no.
What? Did someone say the word conspiracy?
No.
Oh no. Let me tell you something about MK Ultra and the mind-controlled slaves.
Jesse, get out.
They're going to be coming out in the 2016 is the year where a series of random words and numbers, and you want to know what those random words and numbers are?
Yes.
Caleb. They're TurboGrafx 16.
Caleb,
guess what Kanye West's new album is going to be titled? TurboGrafx 16. It's not a conspiracy.
Caleb!
Illuminati!
Get out!
Is he gone? Is he gone?
I'm sorry, I blocked the door.
Is he gone?
We gotta stop saying the word conspiracy. He hears it. He thinks he can just come in here anytime he wants.
I was actually quite interested to hear his thoughts on the VMU conspiracy.
No, shut up, Ross. He's not going back in.
There was a period where we went through. Mike had a very squeaky chair that almost became part of the crew because it would just constantly squeak in the background every time he moved. Even if he wasn't speaking, you could just hear this squeaky chair in the background.
Yeah.
Which again, I tried my best to edit out, but in some cases was just too squeaky to edit out.
It was even harder, like editing things because we were on Skype, weren't we? We've always been on Skype since the very beginning.
Skype, and there's been a couple of other ones that have gone by the wayside that are no longer in existence.
Now we've got this clean feed thing we use where you can do multi-track recording. So if someone's chair's squeaking, as long as they're not speaking, of course, you can get rid of it really easily. But yeah, that'd be so painful to remove from a one-track recording.
Yeah, if it's all just one track on the Audacity timeline and it's just everybody's voices all together, there's no way you can just like block out somebody who's talking over somebody else because it's all just one waveform.
Yeah.
As you know, so I'm sure people listening to this will know as well. So yeah, that was a bit of a nightmare when we had things like that. Another similar one was when we did the Corey Marshall, Adam Koralik chat. Corey was sat directly in front of his air conditioner that would come on and off throughout the recording just at random. And he did apologise for it, but when it went off, it was so loud. And again, it was a single track recording, so I had to keep like cutting bits out where he was talking about stuff, and then this would just appear in the background. I was like, oh, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, like, how did I not hear that when we were just chatting before the podcast? And yeah, we made it work, but that was annoying.
I wanted to bounce off the air conditioner one, actually, and go on. There was a favourite moment of mine in particular. There was this one episode where, like, I think we were having a heat wave in the UK, and just all the way through, Mike is just constantly, he's like, oh my God, why is it so hot? Oh, that was hilarious. And I think everyone was kind of losing their minds from how hot it was.
Well, we in lockdown as well. It was during like COVID when it was something.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, that's just like some of the shit we come out with on that episode is just hilarious. But
and of course, Mike is a giant of a man, so I'm not surprised he was like really hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Huge bloke.
Mike, would you say that you currently feel like the cover of Sengoku Turb 2?
Do I feel like yeah, good one. I like that.
That visual gag, I'm gonna have to like
yeah, because just like the cover of Sengoku Turb, I love my fan double entendre, whatever it's called. I am literally at the current time feeling like I'm melting in some kind of kaleidoscope of heat and sweat. It's just sort of
I can see that now, and I appreciate it.
The little character on that cover, I've got a soft toy of that character. If I was to pick it up now, it would probably just disintegrate in my hands, because this room is like an oven. I am cooking Dreamcast games at the current time. It's it's just, why is it so hot? This is why none of us should drive.
I was going to say we could go off on like a massive tangent into like global warming and.
That's unlike us, isn't it? It's unlike us to go on a massive tangent.
I think one of the most infamous ones that I've mentioned was, I don't think it ever actually made it into an episode, because I had to edit it out, but there was an early episode where me, Aaron, the Gagger Man, and whoever else was on the podcast, he wasn't actually talking, but his partner knocked on the door where he was doing the recording and brought his tea in, or his dinner, whatever you call it, wherever you are in the world, his evening meal, shall we say.
Yeah.
And we could hear them talking, chat. She gave him his meal. And then he started eating it, like, right by the microphone. So all you could hear was knife and fork, him chewing and eating his food. And I was just like, well, can we stop the podcast? I think somebody was mid-flow chatting about something. I think it might have been Rob. I was like, mate, are you fucking eating? He was like, what? I'm like, I can hear every mouthful. Do you know what I mean? It's going right in my ear hole. You, like, slapping your mouth.
Hilarious, yeah. There was one actually that you reminded me of, Tom, that a lot of people have mentioned actually, as far as moments on the pod, and that was Mark, or Maz Gaming. He told a spooky story on a Halloween episode, and everyone was kind of scared shitless. I think.
Yeah, the one about the guy at the top of the stairs or something.
Yes, yeah.
God, it still gives me shivers now. Literally now as I'm saying it. Mark, I'm coming to you next.
So kind of similar-ish, on a similar vein here, really. So my mum's house, she's lived there the entirety of my life. It's still there now, and it's just known as like I don't even know whether I particularly believe in ghosts, but it's just known as like a very, very haunted house generally. So like growing up, the lights had come on in the bedroom in the middle of the night on their own, and I just kind of accept that as like, well, that's just what happens here.
Bad wiring.
Yeah, and then other things like. Quite a few times the wardrobe doors would open on their own and stuff like that. Like there was a time similar to what someone said earlier. I was on MSN like when I was about 13, 14, and there's no road at the back of the house, and my bedroom was at the rear of the house. And a shadow of a man walked past like behind me on the wall while I was chatting to my friend Amy, and we both saw it, and I freaked out and ran downstairs because I saw it. And then, I spent like an hour trying to work out what that was. But the one in particular, because I had friends who stayed over at school who refused to ever stay over again because they said that like when they were in bed, the bed was rocking and stuff like that, and like loads of mad stuff. But the worst one ever was when I was about 17. I'd moved out. Actually, I must have been 18. Yeah, I just moved out, and I came home about 2 weeks later, and as you open my mum's front door, the stairs are right kind of immediately in front of you. And I was talking to her just at the door, and I said, "Oh, who's upstairs?" Because she lives on her own. She said, "Oh, no one." But I looked up, and there was a man at the top of the stairs, like just like his head was peeking round and looking at me.
Oh.
Yeah, right. And then like, as I made eye contact with him, his head moved around, you know, like as if he was hiding. And I was like, "Mum, there's definitely." I'm like, "I've just seen."
Oh no,
definitely
that's awful.
upstairs. And like,
Jesus Christ!
But she was adamant that it wasn't. So I ran upstairs thinking that there was actually someone in the house. Literally tore the house apart upstairs, going, "I've definitely seen someone, 100%." Like, and I described him and was like, "I have no idea what that was." A week later, my uncle came round, who rarely visits. We hadn't spoken or anything, and I happened to be there. When he opened the door, he was like, "Oh, he was upstairs. I've just seen a guy peeking his head round." And I said,
"Oh no,
yeah,
no."
I said, right, I'm not going to say anything. Describe him, and he described him exactly the same. And it freaked my mum out so much.
It's freaking me out right now.
Hey, tell me about it. I'm in the house on my own. When I look in the window.
There's a power cut during this podcast.
I know. Yeah, like, I've never actually told my girlfriend those stories because she has had to stay over there a few times. It's like I would never tell her how many things I saw as a kid in that place. It's rough. That honestly, that house is terrifying.
That is bad, mate. I'm going to be thinking about that now all night. Mate, that proper puts chills down my spine.
This is not necessarily a DreamPod thing on the actual DreamPod, but you and Brian were on the Video Game History Foundation's podcast.
Yeah, that was pretty surreal, to be honest. I mean, I've been asked to be on other people's podcasts, you know, a lot over the years. But to be asked by Frank Cifaldi and Kelsey Lewin to go on the Video Game History Foundation's podcast about the Dreamcast was really cool. I mean, obviously Brian knows Kelsey, but I don't think it was anything to do with that. It was just that they wanted somebody to come and speak, you know, and again, I'm going to sound like a big head, but authoritatively about the Dreamcast launch specifically in Europe, on their podcast. And so it was just a great honour to be able to chat with them and talk about the Dreamcast, and obviously give the Dreamcast Junkyard a bit of a boost as well, because the Video Game History Foundation does great things, and I'm sure people listening to this will know who they are and what they do. So to be involved in some way with what they do is just an honour, really. So that was pretty surreal, to be honest.
One thing I wanted to mention as well is we did a series of, I think it was 4 episodes with Andrew's old podcast Dreamcast years. I just really liked the format of that. I loved Andrew's delivery when he'd read out all the horrible news of whatever year we were talking about. It's like, and then this person died, and then this exploded, and it's just the delivery of that was so funny.
Well, I think he has a certain way of delivering like bad news, which makes it almost like quite lighthearted.
Yeah.
Is a gift, I think.
So yeah, those are some of our favourite moments that can come to mind, but there's so many great moments and funny times we've had on the podcast over the years.
Yeah. 10 years, man. It's a long time, isn't it? It's been a wild ride.
It is a long time. What's cool about Buzzsprout, the host, this isn't a promotion for them, by the way, but they do a cool thing, which is where they present to us these like achievements that your podcast has achieved. And obviously one of the like really amazing ones is we reached 250,000 episode downloads, which is mind-blowing. You know, thank you to everyone who's ever downloaded a DreamPod episode. I
mean, 249,000 of them are probably me.
Yeah,
but
me testing to see if the episode's uploaded properly. Yeah, I mean that's kind of mad. Like, that's just downloads. So I presume that means, like, you know, when you've actually chosen to download the episode to like your phone or your laptop. But it makes me wonder how many. I don't think we have a stat for this, but like how many streams? I'm not sure. Maybe the downloads and streams are kind of the same thing here for Buzzsprout. But either way, thank you everyone who's ever downloaded or listened to the podcast. You know, that's an amazing stat.
I remember like quite early on when we maybe sort of the midpoint of the whole DreamPod thing. I kind of got a little bit obsessed with like the iTunes podcast charts. And so I would look to see if we placed in the like the gaming and hobbies chart. I remember one day I was looking, and we actually there was a podcast I used to listen to years ago called the Video Gamer Podcast. Mm-hmm. I was obsessed with it because it was so funny. It was just like a bunch of blokes talking shit about games. I thought it was amazing. But there was one particular day I looked at the charts, and the DreamPod was above the Video Gamer Podcast. I was like, oh my god, what has happened here? You know, this is amazing. It didn't last long, but just to see that on my little iPod or whatever was just like surreal.
Yeah, that is really cool. I think like maybe at the time you shared like a screenshot of it. I don't even know. Do they do that that whole charts thing anymore? Because I don't feel like I check them anymore. Yeah. Yeah, another cool thing actually, before I go on to the rest of the Buzzsprout stats, is the DreamPod was also nominated as a finalist for the UK Podcast Awards in 2015, which was pretty cool. I mean, considering it was the year the podcast launched, not bad being a finalist.
Yeah, the thing about all those kind of award shows is that you basically you pay to go to them, and you basically have to get your listeners to vote for you. So I don't know how much value I put in it, but it was great to go to an award ceremony, and it was great to be there and see it.
Also, you're actually at like a physical award ceremony.
Yeah, me and Rob went to the podcast awards. It was up in Manchester. Yeah, I think the one that won it was Retro Asylum.
Oh,
they won,
cool!
Like the best gaming podcast for that year, and congratulations to them, I suppose. Yeah, it was great. But I mean, this is going to sound really salty, but in retroactively, I don't think that it meant as much as I thought it did at the time, because it was kind of, do you know what I mean? It was more like a paid for thing than anything. It was
was it like our fans voted for the podcast?
Yeah, you had to get so many votes to get to be in the finals.
Yeah, however many fans could vote determines who wins, I suppose. But
yeah,
I suppose it shows that we've got some very passionate fans. So thank you for voting. Yeah. So if we just go back to these Buzzsprout stats, we also have an award on Buzzsprout for 100 episodes. Obviously, we discussed the episode with Peter Moore. Yep, 100 episodes, quite away from the 200 episode mark.
It's only 60 of our episodes.
True. Really. Yeah. The only thing is because we've got, like we say, the bonus episodes, we'll probably reach 200 before we're actually on episode 200, which will be weird to explain to our listeners. But anyway, I also had a look at our top episodes as far as downloads. Episode 0, obviously, Tom, you said that you're a bit embarrassed by it. That's our most downloaded episode.
Oh, wow.
And I think it kind of lends itself to what you were saying about how people marathon. So, if they're starting from there, that's likely going to be the one that gets the most downloads.
Maybe they listen to that one though, and then just don't listen to any others. I'm not listening to any of this.
That's true. Yeah. Leading on with that theme is episode 1 as well. That is the second most downloaded.
Oh, wow.
What I thought was quite funny is that after episode 0, the topic for episode 1 was straight into, let's discuss the worst Dreamcast games ever. It's like, we love this console, but these games are shit. So yeah, that was the topic of episode 1, if you want to hear about some terrible Dreamcast games. Although we've discussed Spirit of Speed a million times since then, probably. Yeah. The third on the top 5 is the one about Elysian Shadows. I mean, that was a big deal project at the time. Yeah. So everyone wanted to hear about it. We will swiftly move on to number 4, which was episode 61, which interestingly, it's the fourth most downloaded episode. But as far as I, listening back to it, it's kind of just a general news episode. Mike does discuss his A to Z on there, which is cool. So that was probably the first time he mentioned that. But yeah, just interesting, sort of a general news episode.
I love in the episode sort of description, we mention the dance term flossing.
Yes, yeah.
How that's such a time capsule, isn't it? 2018.
Yeah.
God, I don't think I've seen anybody or heard anyone mention the floss for years now.
I think it's a dance that's in Fortnite. I think that's kind of what killed it off. I think that made it immediately uncool. But yeah. And then the 5th episode is the one you did all about the Naomi or the Naomi. I don't know if it really has a pronunciation, because as far as I'm aware, it's an acronym for something. I don't know. Yeah, so those are the top 5 episodes. Something interesting as well, I just, while we're on these stats, 57 countries have listened to the DreamPod, with the top being the United States of America and the UK. And for some reason, San Jose in California is our number 1 city of listeners.
Wow.
I mean, it is the largest city in Northern California, so I don't know, maybe population density, a lot of people. But yeah, thank you to San Jose.
Imagine we go there. Imagine going there and being seen as a superstar, and you just didn't even know. We're super famous in San Jose.
Big DreamPod billboard. It's we love you guys.
We didn't even know.
Yeah. God, that would be surreal, wouldn't it? That's a random question, actually. Have you ever bumped into someone, or you've chatted to someone, they're like, oh, I know the DreamPod. Have you ever had that? Have you?
Yes, I have. It was surreal. A couple of times I've just bumped into people who have said, "Oh, you Tom?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, and I was like, "Right, okay." It's mainly at gaming events.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there was one particular incident where it was quite close to where I live. We were in a pub. It was like an event at a pub. And I'm really sorry if you're listening to this and I can't remember your name. But there was a guy there who, he said he recognised my voice from the podcast.
Yeah.
And he was genuinely a listener. And we chatted about Dreamcast for ages. And I was with my partner, and she was just like, "I can't believe this is happening. Somebody recognised you because of your voice."
Yeah.
And, so it has happened, but not very often.
That's
thankfully.
awesome. Those are our stats for 10 years of the DreamPod.
Nice.
How do you feel about having so many listeners to this humble podcast?
Well, I mean, considering we started at episode 0 with no kind of plan or anything like that, and it was just a bit of a mess around, to have that many people listening from all over the world is, a great honour. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who's listened over the last 10 years, and here's to many, many more years of the DreamPod, hopefully.
Yeah, I just want to also thank the patrons as well. We recently set up a Patreon. All of the funds that people generously donate go towards hosting this very podcast. They're paying for the software we're using and also the hosting itself. And so, yeah, thank you to everyone. And
should we read them out? We're doing what? We do them like it's sort of you read one and I'll read one.
Like at school where they ask you to read from a textbook. Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll start then. So thank you to Ty Guy.
Thank you see, I fucked it up already.
Oh,
there
God.
You go. So thank you to Chris Walter.
Thank you, Gary Meacher.
Thank you to Anthony Harrop.
Thanks to PP Burns. I've just got that.
Actually. Yeah, I thought I'd let you read that one. Thank you to Lee Sparks.
Thanks to Alex Hayden.
Thank you to Thomas Woogler.
The little sort of dots above the U made me think it should be pronounced maybe Vergler.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas, anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Wombat, thank you to you.
And thanks you to Massimiliano. I believe you have a first name, but for some reason it's just got your surname here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you to Ross Kilgareth.
Thank you to Willis Alvey.
Thanks to N. Sanders.
Thank you to James B.
A million thanks to Derek Pascarella.
Thank you to Harvey or Pizza Hotline.
Thank you to you, Lewis.
Oh, yeah, I am a patron. And thank you to Loz as well, who's also a member of our...
Am I still a patron?
I think you are, yeah. I don't know why you're missed off.
Why am I not on this list, Lewis?
I know, I'm sorry.
Scandalous.
We should make sure we thank all of our loyal patrons.
Withdrawing my support.
Podcast over. This was the last episode.
Come full circle,
yeah. So, I feel like we're drawing to the end of the podcast, but it's been a really nice chat, a nice reminisce. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is there any final words you want to say, Tom?
Only to look after yourselves and each other. I stole that from Jerry Springer, sorry.
And continue to listen to the DreamPod.
Yeah, of course.
For many more years. And, if we're going to have more episodes coming at you, and then obviously in December we'll do one about the anniversary of the website itself, 20 years. So, look forward to that. Yeah. Yes. If you want to check out the website, you can go to www.thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. Read our articles there. There's some excellent articles from the likes of Tom and Loz, and some all right ones from me. And then we're also on a variety of social media. We've got Twitter, Blue Sky. If you just search the Dreamcast Junkyard, you can find us on those. Also got Facebook, Discord. You can find us if you search for us. I thought, just as a treat, Harvey, also known as Pizza Hotline, sent this to me recently. I was like, oh man, we got to put this at the end of the anniversary episode. So if you've listened to the DreamPod past where someone says, see you later, there is a little outro, like a remix of This Is a Dreamcast disc intro that we use. And he's now created a full version of it, so like a full-length version. And I believe he will put it out in some capacity, for people to stream at some point. But we've got a world exclusive here. So, playing us out today is Pizza Hotline's full version of the DreamPod outro music. So yeah, thanks for listening and keep dreaming.
This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now.